All right, this makes two consecutive previews. I guess 2 out of 3, because we did a USC preview in there too. But 2 out of 3 previews, Connor, that you and I have done together, where we have come on this very platform and said Arizona is going to coast, no questions asked. I don't see how it's a competitive game, only for them to lay a giant egg and have a very competitive game against an underwhelming opponent. UCLA this time was in control of this game for much of it, including a lead at halftime. The moment where UCLA had the highest win probability in this game, according to KenPom, was a 53-40 lead with just over 10 minutes left in the second half. Arizona then went on a 35-18 run to close the game and win the game by 6 points. The Wildcats are clearly very good. They're clearly very talented. They are third in the nation, according to KenPom right now. But it seems to me that they continue to play with their food, and UCLA was the benefit of that in this game. Do you think that that's the accurate interpretation of what is wrong with Arizona right now?
Yeah, I do. I think they are a team that relies a lot on their ability to make runs. And when they can't, when they don't, when they get into a dogfight, sometimes it just doesn't work out for them. I think this game says as much, if not more, about this game and what happened after the game. Says about as much, if not more, about Mick Cronin than it does Arizona. Mick Cronin just as a college basketball coach right now. I have never seen a coach take zero responsibility for losses as consistently as Mick Cronin has this season.
Okay, I think you're right. So let's do the mental psychoanalysis of this. I love to psychoanalyze on this program. Mick Cronin, not one of my personal favorite coaches in the country. Not a guy I enjoy rooting for. Not a guy I enjoy watching. Entertainment value, is he up there? Yeah, maybe. But very grumpy, very antagonistic at all times. And yeah, if you watch his post-game comments in this one, I mean, he's not even answering questions. There's no credit given to Arizona. Just kind of is what it is. You told me you have some takes on Mick Cronin. Where does that leave you?
I think he's the coach that if I was a player, I would least want to play for in the country. I think, and you see coaches like Mick Cronin is not the only coach that calls out his players or talks about the refs. We've seen it before, but and I'll say it like what I just did, like take almost zero responsibility for those losses. We saw it after the game against Villanova, where he made that comment, and you kind of, if you read it in context, you kind of get where he was going with it. But it was just, we got beat by essentially by nobodies, players that aren't that good. He made some comment that was basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but like a teacher can't teach if his students aren't competent or something like that, like throwing his players again under the bus. After the game against Arizona, he was he made some comment, and I don't even know where he was going with this, but some comment about the number of fouls and playing more aggressively as a team that's losing versus a team that's up, and how that didn't happen in this game. But like, it never seems like he ever reflects and says, I could have made a different decision, or, we could have done this, we could have done that. And we've seen, like, Mark Few after the loss to Santa Clara was talking about how Anton Watson was the only one making plays, but the rest of the team, struggled. But he also gave credit to the other team, and he wasn't throwing anyone specific under the bus. He wasn't throwing the refs under the bus. Like, he wasn't blaming the game on the refs. And Mick Cronin does it so consistently, and has ever since he got to UCLA, done it so consistently, where you come out of those post-game press conferences almost going, Mick Cronin doesn't think he lost this game.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I just personality clashing wise, I totally agree. I would despise it. I think there's a type of guy out there guy, meaning college basketball player, that I think Cronin really resonates with. And I think we saw that in his time at Cincinnati. And I think to an extent, like, it's not like he hasn't had great UCLA teams. Like, there is a player and an archetype that works in how Cronin operates. I don't think any player on this roster is that, though. Like, which those problems should have been apparent coming into the season. And not to pat myself on the back too much, Connor, but I like to do that when I can. We did a preseason bold predictions episode, and one of my 20 bold predictions was that UCLA will miss the NCAA tournament. I think there were pretty apparent red flags here of, like, take 5 overseas kids that all think they're professional basketball players and give them to Mick Cronin. Huh? Like, what? Like, do any of these kids even know what college basketball is? Do they want to be in it for an extended amount of time? Or are they, like, looking where their names are at on mock draft boards? To me, it would be more of that. And that's not an indictment on Mick. It's not an indictment on the players necessarily. It's just a bad fit. It's a sloppy combination. And that's when he's had them completely available, right? Like, Vide played 5 minutes in this game. He looked pretty damn good in 5 minutes, but he was supposed to be like a 30-minute guy. Demara's been in and out of the lineup. I don't know. It's just like the pie in the sky of what it would look like if all of these guys were available has not come to fruition, and it's left them in a spot where, like, Sebastian Mack is your best player, and he's an 18-year-old kid. So it's a tough spot. With that said, I think it would be foolish, even if it's entertaining and funny for us to, like, point fingers at Mick and how stupid he looks. It would be foolish for the takeaway from this game to be like, ha, UCLA stinks. Because how the hell did they lead Arizona for 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's not UCLA stinks. I think they're talented. And I think as a coach, just as a X's and O's coach, Mick Cronin is great. It's just every time I see him in a post game after a loss, it rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I do think this, I don't know if it was Arizona playing with their food, but the last 10 minutes of this game is why Arizona is still a top 10 team in the country. They outscored UCLA by 17 in the last 10 minutes after losing the entire game. So we know that they can turn it on at any time. But this was the game from Caleb Love and Kylin Boswell that you fear when you're Arizona. They were a combined 3 of 14 from deep. Caleb Love was also only 3 of 8 from inside the arc. They had a combined 6 turnovers to just 4 assists. Not a great showing from the starting backcourt of the Arizona Wildcats. And you throw in Jaden Bradley was only 0 of 1 from the field as well, from the floor as well. Like, this was a game that was won by the wings and won by Umar Ballo. And I think that is the reason why you bet against Arizona winning a national championship. Is we've been waiting with bated breath for this type of game from the backcourt, and it finally happened. They won, but if it's not UCLA, if it's a tournament team, I don't know if they win this game.
So Arizona has lost 4 of their last 10 games. That seems a little crazy to say out loud. Now, that stretch does include Purdue. It includes Florida Atlantic. It includes Alabama. So they played some of the better teams in the country in that span. But it includes 7 games in the Pac-12 where they have now lost 2 of and flirted with disaster here. In that 10-game stretch, Kylin Boswell has had an offensive rating of 100 or higher just 3 times. That's really, really bad for a guy who is supposed to be one of the best point guards in the country. You and I just did a Purdue recap. I've been joking about this with Braden Smith. Like, him cracking 10 points a game matters to me on a consistent basis. Boswell has been in single digits 5 of those 10 games, 4 of the last 7. He had 0 points and 0 assists against Washington State in their loss. He had 3 points and 2 assists in 27 minutes in this game. I feel like I'm just watching a totally different guy. than I saw in the non-conference right now. Like I saw this guy be the baddest MFer on the court against Michigan State. And he wasn't perfect in that game, but he was toe-to-toe with AJ Hogarth and Tyson Walker, throwing crazy passes, talking that shit, up in their shorts defensively. What has happened to that guy? Like, why has that guy disappeared? I think I got you muted again.
Sorry, I was
You're
fixing
good.
my the light glare that was coming across my screen. Look, it's the same reason Braden Smith has kind of faded, like they're sophomore guards. So and I agree with you. I actually think the Kylin Boswell fade is a lot more concerning than the Braden Smith fade. But I mean, it was kind of like the perfect storm because it wasn't just Boswell. Like this was Caleb Love's worst game since the Duke game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Braden Smith, not to talk too much about Purdue, but I think Braden Smith has more of those like good games in him than Kylin Boswell does. Kylin Boswell has had a lot of good games when it comes to setting the table. Utah, even the Stanford game, he was pretty good at it. But the last three, UCLA, USC, Washington State, he's not only been unable to set the table for his teammates, but also unable to score. I understand, like USC, he had a good offensive rating. He had 11 points. He took 12 shots to get those 11 points. He also only had 3 assists. So it's pretty concerning. And I think part of it is just, I want to say like they're giving him more opportunities to run the show now. And maybe that's working against him.
I could see it. Yeah, and look, it's hard to be, I don't know, it's hard to play point guard in college basketball, right? Like that's part of this. We're seeing Tyler Kolek struggle with it to an extent for Marquette. And consistency at that level, at that position, on high-profile teams that are on national television and big games is a very difficult thing to muster if you're not the very best in the country. And Boswell is one of the best in the country, but until he gets more consistent, I think it's fair to kind of hold him back out of that elite tier. Let's just do a general concern level with Arizona. That's the most important thing I want to learn from this. 1 to 10, where is your alarm sounding number for the Wildcats as a team right now?
If it was at a 3 or a 2 before this game, I'd probably put it at a 7 or an 8 now, because we always knew that they were a team that struggled away from home. The fact that they put up a stinker in Tucson, to me, is the most concerning part, because not that home away matters when it comes to the tournament. You're going to play all your games at a neutral site, but a team that can also look this bad, even in a win, a team that can also look this bad for 30 minutes in a game at home is a team that I don't think can win 6 in a row. And if they had won this by 25, I'd still think they could win 6 in a row. But the fact that they can be in such an advantageous environment against such a mediocre at best team and still only win by 6 in what took a really big effort at the end of the game to come back and win, that's a pretty big concern for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna go high. I think this is a 10 out of 10 concern level. And look, maybe I'll look stupid in the long run. I don't know. If I do, congratulations to Arizona fans one day. But I don't think this team can afford to coast through the regular season acting like they don't care. And that's not to say they didn't want to win this basketball game. I hate when people analyze games at the end of it based on a win or loss or a result, and you say they didn't want that one. Obviously, they wanted it. There are reasons to believe there are serious issues on the court that translate to this. Kylin Boswell's play being one of them. But to me, this is a team who should be destroying inferior opponents on a night in and night out basis. It's hard to be that consistent in college basketball. It doesn't always happen. But to me, like over the course of the last 3 weeks, we're not even seeing glimpses of that. Like we're seeing them flirt with disaster or win a game but not cover and miss the margin by 8 points. Like they're kind of just going through the motions. And at times last year, probably 50% of the time, I think that's what we watched Arizona do. And last year, to me, there were better threats. Like UCLA was a threat to win the conference. There were some higher profile games they were going to play from January through March that just aren't on the schedule this year. This should have been one of their highest profile ones, no matter what you make of UCLA right now. And we're now going on 4 or 5 games in a row where I just don't think we're seeing the best version of Arizona show up. I think it's on Arizona to figure that out. Like I don't think there's really any sort of triggering incident that's going to make Arizona play well again, unless Arizona figures out what it is. And the fact that they can't right now, like I think it's really hard for a team that can go through the regular season, win games like this because they're playing inferior opponents. I think it gets hard for them to snap their fingers when they get to the NCAA tournament, playing a desperate team that got an automatic qualifier that's like here. Like that's not to over summarize it, but we saw what happened last year. And there are some programs and some coaches that start to become like, maybe I circle that guy and I fade that guy when he gets to the NCAA tournament. Unless I start to see Arizona dominate inferior opponents in the regular season, this is going to be a team that I want to fade when the bracket comes out in March. Do you think that's too harsh?
I don't think so, because I think this team is still better than last year's team, but I've gotten to the point where I'm willing to say it's not as good as the first year Tommy Lloyd was there. And the first year Tommy Lloyd was there were concerns. They almost lost in the second round. They did lose in the Sweet 16. And this team can go on runs. They could beat any team in the country, but they could also lose to 30 to 40% of the teams in the country. And I wouldn't be surprised. And I think that's what's kind of playing out. This season.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's just really frustrating to watch when you know what their ceiling is, but I don't know that we're ever going to square it until the NCAA tournament gets here. So congrats, Arizona, for surviving. That's important. It is, but red alert. That's how I feel about you guys right now. Subscribe to the Sleepers Media channel so you see all our recaps this season. We'll have previews up for future Arizona games. That's Connor Hope from Heat Check CBB. I'm Greg Waddell from Sleepers Media. We will see you next time.